Hey guys, Caps here with a new guide, covering this time the second boss of Mogu'shan Vault, Feng The Accursed on Heroic mode. Let's get into it. If you are not really that familiar with the normal mode strategy, I strongly recommend you go check out the normal mode guide, as I will only focus on the specific heroic changes in this one. There is a link in the description below for a pretty complete one. The first major change we see on heroic mode is the fact that Feng gets a complete new phase, the shadow or shield phase, in which you'll have to manage 3 to 5 spawns of that depending on your DPS. In addition to this, the order in which you get phases aren't automatically predetermined and fixed anymore as it's the case in normal mode, but rather directly chosen by the raid. Indeed, at exactly 100% health, then 75%, then 50%, and then 25%, Feng will automatically run towards the closest essence of Mogu champion and siphon it. And so if you pre-position him closer to a given essence, he will have to choose that specific one and trigger the associated phase once he reaches the appropriate health percentage. Furthermore, on Heroic, because of his new ability Strength of Spirit, each time he siphons a Mogu essence, his damage increases permanently by 5%, meaning at the end of the fight he will be inflicting 20% more damage, forcing your healers an entire raid to save some cooldown for the last phase. You will also need reactive tanks to manage the stolen essence of stone, as on Heroic a perfect usage of both ability, the barrier and the spell reflector, will be mandatory to beat the encounter. You will, for example, be able to almost completely nullify the epicenter ability on the earth phase and counter 1 out of 2 add spawns on the shadow phase and significantly shorten it, or nullify 1 out of 2 arcane velocity on the arcane phase and save your healers some mana, etc. So make sure your tanks can perfectly manage those 2 extra buttons before anything else, really. Okay, let's break down how to manage each specific phase and determine a recommended phase order to facilitate things. The order in which you face the different phases will naturally be important and have a significant impact on your end result. Most guilds, including my own, went for the Arcane, Shadow, Earth, then Fire order. Since the Arcane phase is a pretty random one, because of how unpredictable the Arcane Velocity and Arcane Resonance timers can get at the beginning of the phase, starting with it helps eliminate any bad luck wipes that could have happened at a later time. Better have those wipes right at the beginning of the fight rather than 5 minutes later, right? The Fire phase is a burst phase and comes in last, so your raid has enough time to recharge every one of its defensive and offensive cooldown. Since the boss will be doing 20% more damage, you will have to burn him down as fast as possible and have enough defensive cooldowns up for his Draw Flames ability, which will simply wipe you otherwise. Facing the other 2 phases in second then in third really allows your raid to recharge its defensive then offensive cooldowns for that last Fire phase, since you shouldn't need any single cooldown on the Earth phase if it's done correctly. Of course, you can decide to go with a different phase order, but keep in mind that Arcane and Fire are the 2 most dangerous phases and so should be kept as far apart as possible, or you probably won't have enough abilities to correctly manage them. Okay, let's see in more details how to manage each individual phase. The Arcane phase is the reactive phase of the fight, as it will require some students stacking up and spreading out depending on the Arcane Velocity and Resonance. Start the fight by bringing the boss closer to the Staff Mogu statue so he can siphon its essence, then quickly place him back in the center of the room. Casters and healers should then spread around the boss and make sure they are 6 yards apart from each other. This is to make sure arcane resonance only hits one single target. Don't hesitate to directly assign a position to every caster to facilitate it and not lose time while spreading out. As soon as the boss starts casting arcane velocity, quickly stack up on him just like you saw Red Face back in DS, and you can even stack up a second or so before he starts to cast if your burst mode is accurate enough. In any case, make sure Arcane Resonance has been cast before doing this, and players with it should stay away of course and not stack up on the rest of the raid. Simply use defensive cooldowns on them and heal them up during the velocity. A second before the arcane velocity ends, spread out again as the boss will immediately cast another resonance, and if you are still stacking up then it will simply wipe you. Furthermore, the tank with the nullification barrier should use it on the first and third velocity, while the raid cooldown should be used on the second and fourth velocity. Don't hesitate to use them all as they shouldn't be needed before phase 4. That's it. At around 76%, bring the boss near the shield statue for the shadow phase. The shadow phase strategy is much simpler than the arcane one, as you will simply need to place your raid at one side of the chamber and the boss on the other side. Shortly after he siphons the Mogu'shan, Feng will throw his shield across the room. As soon as it lands, ads will spawn on 5 random players, or 10 in a 25-man raid, and will start moving towards the shield on the ground. If they reach it, they will instantly heal the boss for 5% health per ad, which is bad. You'll thus have to kill the ads before they reach the shield, with strong AoE damage, stones, slows, and bumps to give yourself enough time. Feel free to even pop some offensive cooldowns to manage this. Here is how the raid should position for this phase. Don't forget that ads can spawn on melees as well, so as soon as Feng throws his shield, everyone should stack on the casters to have the ads nicely stacked up for AoE once they spawn. Furthermore, if the tank with the notification barrier places a barrier on the shield once it's hit the ground, the ads will automatically despawn and you simply will not have to manage them. This is even a bit overpowered, so use it as much as possible, which should be on the first, third and fifth spawn. That's it really. Heal the occasional chains of shadow and spirit bolts as well, and you should do just fine. At around 51%, bring the boss near the fist statue for the earth phase. The earth phase is the simplest one when it's done properly, meaning if your tanks manage perfectly, there are extra buttons. The positioning is simple as well. Simply keep the boss on the Mogu statue and the raid stacked up on the right side of the chamber. Here is the diagram. The only change here is Feng's Lightning Fist ability. It now creates 3 lightning shockwaves instead of just 1 as on normal mode. But it's much easier to avoid as he always casts them on his left side, and so if you're standing on his right, you won't even have to move to avoid them. The way you manage the epicenter ability doesn't change from normal mode neither. Simply use both tanks' extra buttons, the nullification barrier and shroud of reversal abilities to counter them in a rotation. Use the first one on the raid during the first epicenter as an anti-magic barrier, and the second one to copy the boss lightning fist spell and stun him with it during the second epicenter. That's it. After 3 or 4 epicenters, you should be able to bring him down to 25% and trigger the last phase. In the fire phase, simply keep the boss on the Mogu statue and the raid in the center of the chamber. Players with the wild fire spark debuff should run away and pop it far from the raid. Use the nullification barrier on the first draw flame ability to cancel it and burn the boss down before the second one. And if he can cast that second one before you can kill him, simply use all your remaining raid cooldowns in a rotation to survive it. They should all be up and active again since you didn't use them on the previous phase. That's it. So it's basically a burn-in phase, and bloodlust and heroism can of course be kept for it. That is, if you didn't already use it on the arcane or shadow phase. Well guys, this brings us to the end of this guide. If you have any specific questions, don't hesitate a second to ask them in the comments below. Feel free to click that like button if this video was helpful, and share, subscribe for even more strategy guides. As always, thanks a lot for sticking around, and I hope to see you in the next one.